Sanam aloha. So the karmic axis is shifting for humanity this week. So the karmic axis correlates to the nodes of the moon. So we have a north node of the moon, which is also called Rahu, and then the south node of the moon, which is also called Ketu. So the south node represents our past and what we're letting go of and leaving behind. And the north node represents our future and what we're to embrace. So the shadow patterns of the karmic axis, they shift on March 16th, and they're going to stay there until July 31st. So before I get into it, I'm going to be uploading another video in the next couple of days that will show you where this will affect your life. So you're going to need your sun sign, your ascendant or your rising sign, and your moon sign. So make sure you have these three things. And it's also a good idea to have your human design chart too. So all the links are in the information box below, and you can get your free charts there. So in order to get this video, be sure to like the video, this video that you're on right now, subscribe and ring the bell so that you're notified when this video uploads. Because it's going to be very important information for you to know and where to put your focus in for the next 4 months, right? Becoming aware of these patterns is half the battle. So the nodes of the moon, they've been there, right, in the 14 and the 8 since January 18th, 2022. So this has been all about letting go of the shadow pattern of compromise, right? So stop compromising yourself because you don't believe in your higher self, that you need something outside of you, a crutch to lean on. You believe that you have no power, so you make compromises. You make someone else's voice more important than your own, for example, right? And we were being called to move into the north node, which is to embrace our uniqueness, your uniqueness. 7.5 billion people on the planet, growing every day, right? But there's only one you. So that's the diamond self that lives within you, that is buried under layers and layers and layers of conditioning. So this is about being your authentic self without compromising your authenticity. Okay, so we don't leave this entirely behind, this 814. I did a video on it, so you can go back and watch that if you want to learn more about it, because it's part of our evolutionary theme of 2022. It was part of the New Year's chart. Okay, so we don't leave it behind. You're still embracing your authentic self. But now we're shifting. We're going to shift into the 2343. And you can see here it forms a channel going from the ajna, that's the personal mind, to the throat. So it's the freak to genius channel, right? And this channel offers deep insights. So if you have this channel, you're going to relate to it, or if someone close to you has this channel, you're going to get a kick out of it. I know of quite a few people that have had this channel. Actually, both my earthly parents have this. And it's all about, you've got to explain your insights. It's all about giving insights to people, but it's all about learning the right timing for when to speak and when not to speak. And so when you jump in with your insight, which may be very true and very profound, if it's not the right time, meaning that people haven't opened their aura to you, they're going to give you the stink eye, right? Like you're kind of crazy, you're kind of out there, right? And they'll just put a block up to you. You'll be seen as crazy. So you can really, with this channel, when you operate correctly, you can really impact the way that other people see things. You can change how other people think about things. So that's very profound. It's a gift of innovative thinking, especially for improving the efficiency of how we use our energy. So, you've got to watch out not being a blurter, because if you start being a blurter, you're going to feel like nobody's listening to you. So it's about controlling the timing. And it's a projector channel, which means you have to be asked, right? You have to be asked. So you really need, if you have this channel, and we're going to feel it, right? Because we're going to be all in this transit together as a humanity. in the next couple months. You've got a deep need to talk things through with others, to hear what you know. And this can come as a surprise to you. I didn't know I knew that. Okay, so just keep that in mind with the channel, just to give you context to where it's coming from. So the self node, let's go into the specifics here. The self node, what we're leaving behind, is the 43, 43rd hexagram. And this is the shadow of deafness, the shadow of deafness. So this 43 really represents the archetype of the rebel, and the lower frequency of the rebel without a cause, right? The lower frequency of the rebel is deaf. So the shadow of the rebel is deaf to the voice of their own soul. That's what they're deaf to. So this shadow rebel listens to their ego, which is the imposter, and they think they're being a rebel, right? But they're not at all. So, you know, the real virus, if we want to talk about viruses, the real virus that's been really revealing itself since 2020, it's not what you think. It's the mind virus. Remember, everything in the external is just a mirror for what's going on in the collective unconscious of humanity. So the mind virus is the ego, okay? And it doesn't want to be seen. It hasn't been seen for thousands of years. And now it's coming to the surface so that we can see it. So for the Aquarian age, all of our enemies, they're not out there on the external, even though we're conditioned to think that. That's not true at all. All of our enemies are actually inside each one of us. This is our true battle, is with our own ego. The ego doesn't want to be seen. So the shadow rebel is in reaction to life. It reacts to people. It reacts to experiences. It's the 2-year-old that never grows up, right? Have you ever talked to somebody who hasn't done their inner child work and they've allowed their 2-year-old to run the show, to take control? Well, what's the 2-year-old's favorite word? No. N-O, no, 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 no. These are the people who are contrary, just for the sake of being contrary. They'll disagree with you, right, about everything. You could say the sky is blue, and they're going to say no, and they're going to argue with you, right? This is the 2-year-old, the rebel. So they'll disagree with you with most things that you say, and you're going to feel drained by them because there's no energy flow. Conversation is a back and forth. It's a flow. It's like a ping pong, if you've ever played ping pong. You serve, right? The other person responds by hitting back the ball, right? Hitting back with something else, or they don't respond what you give them, and then they give you something new. And then it's the back and forth. That's what a conversation is. Well, a shadow rebel takes the ball and throws it on the ground and then stomps on it. That's what it feels like, right? There's no flow at all. It just stops. So the shadow rebel listens to their ego, and the ego is not interested one iota of any kind of real change. They'll sniff it out and they're not interested in it because the ego wants to be in control. And the one that has the power, right? The one that has the power so it can bolster itself up, inflate itself up like a big balloon. That's the ego. So if good things, like really good things and really good people are coming towards the shadow rebel, they're not going to see it. They can't see it because they're in the shadow frequency. So they're in the dense energy. They can't see it. And what they're going to see that person, that opportunity as an enemy, right? So it's inverted. Everything's inverted with the shadow frequency. And it's really that ego projecting itself out onto another person or that opportunity. So secretly, if we go to the emotional level, the shadow rebel feels powerless and unprotected. And this goes back to childhood, the shadow rebel, right? It's created. It's a false persona, a false personality that gets created in childhood in order to cope. So it reminds me of a story. I adopted a dog way back in my 20s. It was little Chow Chow. I don't know if you know Chow Chows. They look like little lions, little red lion. And she was 3 months old. And the woman that had her, she had two little girls, both under 7 years old. And then she just had a newborn. So they got a puppy. And then shortly afterwards, the father took off, right? The husband took off. And she really realized that the puppy on top of everything else was just too much, right? It was too much. So that's why she was trying to get rid of the dog. So when I arrived, she said there were so many people who came to see this dog, but they wouldn't take her because she was vicious, right? She was barking and snarling and trying to bite them. So I looked at her, right, the little puppy, and there's like pee and poop everywhere, right? Clearly not being taken care of. And then the little girls on top of that were hurting the dog, like both under 7, right? Picking her up and throwing her down the stairs and just horrible things like that. Probably playing out their own unexpressed anger, right, coming from their mother. So the dog's under the table, right, snarling and trying to bite me, right? So my intuition right away said, she needs to get out of here. She needs to get out of this environment, right? So with me, what was she seeing, right? I'm just extending my hand out so she can come and smell me. All she sees, this little dog, is there's another person that's going to hurt me. Anyway, the woman was shocked that I decided to take the puppy. So I took her home, and she just slept. And she slept for the first week. And then she finally just started to relax and trust me, right, that I wasn't going to hurt her. So the shadow rebel is kind of like that abused dog, right? Reacting to everyone. Like everyone is a threat. Everyone's an enemy. And the shadow of deafness, right, that we're leaving, the self node, is deaf to the voice of the soul. Deaf to the voice of the soul and listens to the noise box in the head, right? Listens to the ego. This is the shadow. So how do we know? How do we know when our ego is talking to us? And how do we know when our soul is talking to us? Now, the ego can trick us into thinking that it's the voice of our soul. The ego is very good at being an imposter. And if you're in the shadow frequency, which means you're in the frequency of fear, you're going to believe that ego over your soul. So your soul speaks to you through your intuition. Speaks to you through your intuition. In the 23, right, in the North Node, where we're going, where we're being called to embrace, is the gift of simplicity. So let's embrace this gift now, and we're going to compare and contrast the voice of your ego versus the voice of your soul. Right? So the voice of your soul speaks through your intuition. So let's get into this. So the ego sounds harsh, and the intuition is neutral. So the ego's voice is judgmental to the point of being abusive. It can tell you lies. That other person, right, with the outstretched hand that God has brought to you to help you, the ego will say that person has ulterior motives, right? That person wants to take advantage of you. You shouldn't trust them. It will tell you actually to lash out at that person, to send them running, give them the boot, right? Throw them under the bus. Remember, the ego doesn't want any real support, and the ego definitely does not want the capital T truth reaching you. Or the ego will tell you to treat yourself in disrespectful and unloving ways too. Tell you that you're a bad person and you shouldn't be trusted. So intuition, in comparison, is neutral in energy, right? And the messages that come through your intuition make you treat yourself in loving and respectful ways. Make you treat another person in loving and respectful ways. So intuition will tell you the correct people for you to trust. There's no judgment. There's just neutrality. Okay, number 2. Ego is fear-based. Intuition is based on love. So messages from the ego will often be cloaked in fear. You know, like you need to take that boring online class to keep your competitive edge, or you're going to be overlooked and go unnoticed by other people. Or you better keep that job or relationship, right? Because it's going to bring you fulfillment. It's going to give you a regular paycheck. It's going to keep you safe. Otherwise, you're not going to have a home. How will you survive? Those fear-based messages. That's not your intuition. The intuitive voice is rooted in love. And it reminds you that you have the support of the divine every single step of the way. And often with intuition, you don't receive the whole picture. The ego wants the whole picture to feel like it's in control. No whole picture with intuition, right? It's one step at a time. Your intuitive voice comes one step at a time. Number 3, ego is logical and strategic, and intuition is creative. So often the ego's voice will sound logical and rational. The advice is based on the past, right? That no longer exists. So it may sound like, of course you're going to do this because it worked for you in the past. Or this way works for other people, so it's going to work for you, right? It's logical. Makes sense. So intuition rarely sounds logical or rational. I'm laughing because I'm thinking of my own, reflecting on my own intuitive voices, right? It never sounds logical or rational to me. It's the creative voice. It's the solution. It has nothing to do with the past, right? It's often something completely new and it comes out of left field, right? That's intuition. The ego jumps around and intuition is consistent. So often the ego's advice will jump around from one message to the next, especially when you're not listening to it. It will try different ways, right? And often contradicting itself. It's like the thief that tries every way possible to get into your house, right? It's trying the back window, it's trying the front door, it's trying the roof and the chimney, it's trying to get in, right? The message from your intuition is steady, it's consistent. You'll often hear the same words or phrases over and over and over again. It doesn't change. Okay, number 4. The ego protects a mental image that you have of yourself. The intuition protects your soul's journey. So the ego is invested in maintaining a mental image you have of yourself, your self-concept, which isn't you. So for instance, you may be a boss, right? A supervisor of people. You've got a little team that you're the boss. Well, the supervisor is a mental image, right? That the ego identifies with. And this comes with a lot of baggage, and including all the ways the ego thinks you should be treated by others. So if someone doesn't play the game, which means bow to you because you're the boss and I'm the lowly serf employee, right? Then, or doesn't surrender to your ego, basically, right? Perhaps they speak the truth, right? The capital T truth. The ego will feel threatened and lash out. Well, the ego messages will include, I need to put that, you need to put that person back in line. You need to, they need to pay for not respecting you. It's all in an effort to protect a mental image, right, of you that's not true. So things like that. So really reflect on what your ego is identified with, like what title the ego is identified with. And as soon as you get identification, then you've got to protect the identification. That's what the ego does. And it will fool you that it's your intuition. Well, intuition, on the other hand, sees the truth, right? The truth. And that we're all spiritual beings having human experiences. We're all equal, right? Hierarchies are created by the ego to keep us separate and unconscious to the truth. So there's nothing to protect, that's the truth. And our true identity can neither be harmed nor injured, right? We're eternal beings of light. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed, so it can't be harmed. You can't be harmed. The real you cannot be harmed or injured. So with the North Node, we're here to embrace simplicity. That's the gift of the 23. And this really means Well, many things it means, but it means to listen to and obey your intuition. There's nothing more, simple than intuition, right? The ego is very complex. The intuition is very simple. So think of when you want to simplify your home, simplify your home. You declutter. This is a great thing to do actually too on the physical, is declutter, get rid of the excess, isn't it? So doing inner decluttering work, right? Declutter your mind, which is to get rid of excess thoughts. This is the purpose of Mercury retrograde, not to punish you and have a good laugh, a cosmic joke that all your technology falls apart and all these things go wrong. That's not the true purpose. The true purpose of Mercury retrograde is to get you to throw off the thoughts that no longer serve you on your soul's journey. That's what's happening. And to get you to slow down and be in the present moment. Now, the mind makes everything complex, right? Thinking, right? There's a lot of prana because you got to think, you got to feed that thinking mind. So it takes up a lot of prana. So thinking makes everything complex, and simplicity is to be deaf to your ego, right? Deaf. I'm not listening to my ego. I'm not listening to those voices outside of me, right? That are just speaking from their ego. And this way you're able to hear what's really going on inside you, which makes you a better communicator. If you're in that shadow of complexity and deafness, you're not going to hear anybody, right? Because that noise box is going. All you can hear is what you're going to say next. A lot of people think listening is waiting to speak, right? That's not a good communicator. So I want to remind people, for the Aquarian age, we're moving into the vibrational. We're moving into frequency. We're evolving out of that mental awareness system that I talk about. If you want to learn more about that, that's in the 2027 webinar series. And we're moving into the solar plexus awareness system. Okay? So remember that you're feeling your way through life. You're not thinking your way through life anymore. You're feeling your way through life. So simplicity, the gift of simplicity, if it had a voice, it would say, how do I feel about this? How do I feel about this? Not what do I think about this? Remember, thinking isn't a feeling, right? So it's like, okay, what am I feeling about this right now? Well, I'm angry. That period. Stop, right? There's no need to create a story about it, because that's when you involve the mind. So people often ask me, well, what can I do now? What can I do during this time? Am I doing enough? Our real work is to balance the light and shadow within each one of us. Collectively, we're doing this. We're balancing light and shadow. And we do this by integrating our emotions. So instead of getting fixated on the mental details of our experience, we focus on the emotional content of our experience. How does this make me feel? That's your billion-dollar question right there. How does this make me feel? Angry, sad, or afraid? And then you feel it. That's it. And the mind will say, that's too simple, because the mind does not like simplicity. That's the 23rd shadow of complexity. Mind makes things complex, so keep the mind out of it, right? I don't need you right now. Mind is great when you got to do your taxes, right? Or, do something that you got to use that strategic, logical mind. That's when you bring the mind in. Okay, I need you for this. I got to do my accounting right now. The mind will say, well, you got to read this 300-page book. You need to take this 10-month program. You need more techniques. You need more tools. You need more gadgets. You need to do it in the future sometime where you have more time and spaciousness. Maybe when your kids leave the house. Like it makes things complex. Or you need to listen to this person, so-called expert, with tons of letters behind their name, that intellectualizes their emotions, that makes everything complex. There's 256 emotions. What are you talking about? There's not 3, there's 256, and this is how you measure each one. That's the mind, right? So feel what it feels like. when you're in that space of somebody that's making everything complex, like check in with your body and it's like, oh, my breath is like shallow and I'm feeling tense in my body. That's always a sign that you're not in the gift of simplicity. So the best way to learn the fish is to fish, not read a book about it, right? Just do it. Just fish. So just jump into your emotional body and start feeling it. And after you feel them, right, whatever emotions are coming up, the emotional content of your life experience at the moment, in the present time, you'll often receive the insight after. Oh, I got triggered and it was about when I felt powerless as a child, for example. But that comes afterwards, right? After you feel your emotions until completion. Okay, so there's a little bit of information on this 2343. And look out for my next video that's going to come out soon. And this is going to show you what areas of your life where this will play out based on your astrological sign. So be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so that you're notified. Okay. And a reminder of my recorded readings. They show you where you need to embrace your uniqueness. Remember, this is the 8 that we have to embrace for this year. So what food you need to eat, what your brain needs, what your body needs, the environment you need to be in, how your brain works, what you're supposed to see out in the world. It also comes with a meditation, how you make your decisions, how you're supposed to make your decisions, all based on your human design chart. And that's still $25 off. So order yours today. It's over 1.5 hours long. And also mothers have been messaging me lately. Quite a few, actually. I think I'm up to 5 messages now from moms. And they want readings for their children. And I would say the best way, right, is to start with recorded readings to understand your child. They're still applicable, right, to adults and children, and this will get them off on the right foot. So I'm going to put that up for 50% off for children. So you want to click the link and type in children in all caps and the discount code, okay? So that's 50% off for your kids. And also my mother wound and father wound webinars, you can still get both of them for $99, and that's over 16 hours of content plus meditations, right? If you know that you need to do some healing and forgiveness work with your earthly mother and earthly father, like, oh, those trapped emotions I know they have to do with my mother and father issues, then check that out, okay? And please leave your comments, and thank you to everyone who's donated or purchased one of my products or services. I really appreciate it. And you can sign up for my free newsletter so that we stay connected, okay? And you can follow me on Telegram, Instagram, Odyssey, Facebook, okay? And have a great day or evening wherever you are in the world, and keep loving yourself and keep being yourself and really embrace this gift of simplicity. And I hope to see you in the next video. You want to check it out, okay? Where it's going to apply to you, this energy. Okay. Sannam Aloha.